I liken social media to a dinner party or a cocktail party. Are you going to show up and say, hello, I'm Anne from CircleClick. I've got great solutions for you today. So, you have to realize that when you're sending messages and people are reading them, that's the voice in their head reading it to themselves. What do you want them hearing? Thank you. It's so great to be here. Absolutely. I was going into companies as an employee, helping them turn around their marketing efforts. And after the economic collapse in 2008, I realized, hey, I could just do that for a lot of different businesses. And had some friends in California. They called me up and said, hey, let's work together. And the rest is history. Definitely the path to analytics made me believe that SEO was the place for me very early on. I was early to the field, and it started out with just indexing and telling the story, and that was enough. Getting into the listings and doorway sites, and then it kind of became more sophisticated. And now it's all about performance. It's all about the performance. If you load slowly on mobile, forget it. You will not only not get the user traffic, but you will be penalized by the engines. Absolutely, and people are using mobile voice as well when they're driving, and voice commands with Siri and other tools like that. The numbers have gone up exponentially. And the way that it's affected search is that it's now more conversational. So you'll notice that Google's now trying to answer questions for you in search because the language has changed. Instead of using individual queries, we're now thinking in complete questions. And so SEOs are responding to that, and sites are starting to build around that because we need to be more conversational in how we find things. In a post-GDPR world, we really have to think about, is this a good idea? Creep factor is a real thing with retargeting, and so it was a tool we used in the toolbox quite a bit, and AdRoll and Google AdSense and all of those, but now I really don't recommend that anymore, not as a solution for my clients, just because it does feel intrusive. Somebody searches for something personal, they don't want it showing up in their browser. Everybody's got a story about it, about retargeting, and so I don't think it's as effective as it once was, unless you're particularly clever about it or have a really compelling product, which many people do. But in my experience, it is not as hot as it once was. Well, I certainly hope so. I think GDPR was a great idea, but I think the execution was a little weird. The way it resulted and manifested here in the United States was a lot of policy update emails and, modals on sites saying, I accept, I accept, I accept. And so while I think the idea and the intention was amazing, I don't know that the execution has really helped end consumers. I do think privacy is an increasing concern, especially as companies like Google have increased their monopoly. And I hope that regulation comes, but I'm skeptical because I think advertisers lobby pretty hard. So I think we're going to be a little bit further behind, but I'm very hopeful that that's something that does happen. Well, I would say that our notion of privacy changes over time. What somebody in their 40s or 50s thinks is private is different to someone who's, in high school now, because they've only ever been on Facebook and that's the world that they know. So privacy, just like everything else in our morality, it evolves based on the time and the environment. But I think that people are getting fed up, feeling like they don't have any options, and I think we're going to see change affected by that, hopefully. Absolutely. So I am an IBM futurist, and I tour with them and talk about robots and AI and all kinds of fun, geeky IoT stuff. And it's one of my favorite things to do. A lot of people use AI and machine learning interchangeably, when really AI is sort of the umbrella and it's the practice, whereas machine learning is the actual teaching of machines. It's the physical manifestation of it. So that's where machines actually are put into practice and learning, whereas AI is sort of a system that runs. So, I think when I hear deep learning, I often think deep marketing because everybody says it, but not everybody's doing it, just like the blockchain. There's quite a few rounds left in the hype cycle before we're going to see true innovation. But what we're seeing in Silicon Valley isn't so much, hey, these are these hot startups that have built this great AI product. What will happen is there'll be a cluster of engineers, they'll kind of get towards a product and then they'll get snapped up because the talent pool is so small for it. So I have seen interesting applications on the medical side. I definitely think there's propensity there to be helpful to humanity. Like, I really like what IBM's doing with Watson. There's clinical trials going on. So I think that the capability is there to help humanity and make things better. But I think we're not quite there yet because, yes, we have all this data, but a lot of it's unstructured. And so it's hard to work with data that hasn't been categorized. And so, to your point earlier, it definitely is the big oil rush on data, but at the same time, I don't think we're as organized as we think we are, and a lot of machine learning and AI is still a very manual process. Data scientists are still pretty hands-on. I mean, look at autonomous cars, right? I mean, that's the cool one. That's the one I get excited about. I'm like, when can I not have to drive anymore? I mean, I think we're getting there. I think that fused with robotics is definitely what excites me the most. The cars, the health. I think we're probably realistically 3 to 5 years away. And, people do fear it from some perspective because we've all seen the Terminator movies. And that's the worst case scenario. It's like, we're not that advanced. I just want to say that to people when they think Skynet, like, right. We're not actually that far, guys. I think we have at least 3 to 5 years before we're going to see it make a significant impact on our day-to-day lives. I follow the 3-to-1 rule that, you should talk about other things other than yourself in a 3-to-1 ratio. I liken social media to a dinner party or a cocktail party. Are you going to show up and say, hello, I'm Anne from CircleClick. I've got great solutions for you today. So, I mean, you have to realize that when you're sending messages and people are reading them, that's the voice in their head reading it to themselves. What do you want them hearing? You want them annoyed, or do you want them feeling good or going that added value? Because there's so much fighting for attention. You have to be interesting and compelling, not just salesy. It just doesn't work anymore. I tend to not get excited by pat statements like that. I think everybody has to be who they are. And if who you are is a genuinely kind and useful person, why provoke? I think that taking risks like that unnecessarily is kind of foolish. I think just be genuine, be interesting, try to provide value to people in your network when you're sharing something, and stick with what works for you. I don't think there's any hard and fast rule of how to be engaging, because getting attention in the wrong way, it doesn't really help you or your brand at all. Well, right now there's a lot of focus on blockchain, which I'm very into. It hits me on all the stops and all the geek stops. I think what's really exciting is they're using blockchain. They're working with companies and researchers to figure out how to stop the counterfeiting of drugs, which is a $1 trillion industry, and it harms people, kills people every year. So using technologies like blockchain and to enable in the supply chain a way to authenticate that medication from start to finish gets to the right person and it's exactly what they need. I think that's pretty amazing. They're also, using blockchain to track plankton in the sea and use it for research. And so there's just this sort of beautiful move forward to use this technology to try and figure out what's happening in nature and in science. And I think IBM's doing all the right things with blockchain. And so, and Watson too. And so the two combined is a powerful combination. Shameless plug. I recommend the SEO Battlefield, which I wrote in 2016, which came out last year, available on Amazon. It is, by all rights, the manual for anybody with a startup who wants to gain prominence online in search.